Confound him. Why is it always this way with him? Just when you think you know him, who he is and what he's about, he turns the tables on you. He does the last thing in the world you'd expect. He turns you inside out, exposing everything. Do you hear them? Do you hear what they're shouting in the streets? Crucify him. Crucify him. Is that how this is going to end? Is that what I've done? How did this happen? And what's to become of me now? Where do I go? What do I do? It's all happening too fast. I need to slow down. I need to think. I need a plan. This place, this room, it's the only safe place in Jerusalem for me right now. Not for long, perhaps. As soon as they figure out what's happened, what I've done, they'll come looking for me. Or maybe they won't. Maybe after what I've done, no one will come looking for me. I need to think. Is that why you're here? Is that why you've come to this place, to this room? To try and make sense out of what's happening in Jerusalem these days? Yes, this is the place. Right here, this very table. Yeah, this is where they were last night, Jesus, the 12. Yes, I was there. I was one of them. I was one of them. Truly, I believed for a time. And it was good for a time. Something happened along the way. Something turned on the inside. I don't know when exactly. It wasn't all at once. And how it came to this, how I came to this, I don't know. And what to do now? I need to think. I remember the early days back in Galilee. Those were good days. Jesus had been roaming the North Country, teaching in the towns and villages, performing signs and wonders, they said. Word drifted down to Judea, to carry on where I'm from. I didn't take it seriously at first. You know those Galileans, they're a bit backward, prone to hysteria, gullible as the day is long. But when I heard he was talking about a kingdom, that he was standing up to the authorities, he wasn't just playing nice, it got my attention. Like many of my generation, I am named for Judas Maccabeus, that great leader of old, a rebel. He wasn't afraid to stand up against our oppressors. He wasn't afraid to fight for our country, for our dignity. And like many of our generation, I'm tired of Rome's oppression, the humiliation of our people, the occupation of our land. And like many, I'm tired of our leaders' ineptitude. The Pharisees quarreling over the law while our people lose hope. The Sadducees sidling up to Rome to protect their own interests. The Sanhedrin, a whole bunch of them, a bunch of weak old men without courage or vision. No, if things are going to change, we're going to have to do it. We, the people, have to rise up and take them by storm. But who will lead us? Who will call us to action? I'm ready. I'm ready to follow. I was ready to fight. So when I heard that there was a stirring in Galilee, that this Jesus might be the one, I headed north to see for myself. He wasn't hard to find. Everyone was talking about him. He already had a following. Fishermen, mostly peasants, naive, unsophisticated, pious dreamers, most of them. They wouldn't have known a revolution if it snuck up and bit them in the hindquarters. But they're an excitable bunch, those Galileans, I'll give you that. And Jesus gave them something to be excited about. The time has come, he said. The kingdom is at hand. It was about time we heard that kind of language. Turn, he said, and believe the good news. Turn to who? Turn to God? Was God about to act after all this time? Good news, it had been a long time since we'd heard good news in Israel, but Jesus brought it. Release for the captives, recovery of sight for the blind, he said, food for the hungry, the year of God's favor. But with Jesus, it wasn't just talk. He put it into action. He had power and strength. I saw it with my own eyes. Sick people were made well. Possessed people delivered with a word. Time and time again, we looked at each other, whispering, who is this? We dared not say what we were thinking. Whoever he was, I wanted to be close to him. I wanted to be on the inside. If a revolution was about to happen, I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to taste the power and the glory of a better day. Now, I wasn't a Galilean, so I would have to work my way in, but I did. And so when he named his men, he chose 12. And I was one of them. He chose me. He chose me. Was it my zeal that he saw? I was hungry. I was ready for a fight. Or maybe it was my skills. I'm good with numbers, with money, with people. I understand how the system works here in Judea. I can make things happen. Whatever it was, he chose me. But I was determined to be worthy of that trust. Like the others, I left everything to follow him. We spent all our days with him. 12 of us, Jesus, and a band of women who traveled along with us. We hung on his every word, and his words were so powerful. Blessed are the poor, he said, for theirs is the kingdom. Finally, someone speaking up for the common man, for the poor and the downtrodden. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, he said. That's me. That's what I want. I want to see things put right. But we weren't the only ones hanging on his words. People came from everywhere by the hundreds, by the thousands sometimes, to hear him speak. It didn't take long for the religious authorities to take notice. They sent spies up from Jerusalem to keep an eye on things, to challenge him. Who do you think you are, Jesus? By what authority do you do these things? It didn't faze him. He shut them down with a word, with a miracle. What could they say when the lame were walking and the blind were seeing? What could they do when the people were rallying to his side? Those were good days. Good things were happening, not just in Galilee, but in me. I've always had this darkness inside of me. This tendency to see everything that's wrong with everyone, with everything, to expect the worst from the world. And often I bring the worst on myself and those around me. But Jesus, he saw something in me, something good. He called it out of me. He opened my eyes to see what was good and possible in this world, to see who I could be in company with him and his people. I began to believe in him, that he was the one, that better days were ahead. And he began to believe in me, it seemed. He put me in charge of the money, the treasury. He trusted me. I was eager to be worthy of that trust, to be the one he was calling me to be. Maybe he's done that for you. Maybe that's why you're here. He does that for people. He awakens hope and promise where there was none. He helps us see better days. If that's what he's done for you, my friend, then hold on to it. Guard your heart. Because the darkness has a way of creeping back in. all along, I suppose, there were things that bothered me. Things I didn't understand. Like why he was always telling us to keep it quiet. He performed some miracle, a healing, a deliverance. And then he'd tell the person, don't tell anyone, be quiet. Why? Why couldn't we spread the word? Some of the things he said, they were hard for me to accept. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. The meek. Since when do the meek inherit anything? Love your enemies, he said. Do good to those who hate you. Did he really mean that? People who harm you, who are against you, love them? Did he really expect us to do that? If someone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them too, he said. If someone kisses you on the right cheek, where did I say? Strikes. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also, he said. Did he really expect us to live that way? Still, I was hopeful. The movement was gaining strength. The crowds were getting larger and more unruly. The authorities were getting more and more anxious. I could tell they were always lurking in the shadows, watching everything, whispering, plotting. That's good. We had their attention. Any moment now, it would be time for us to make our move. And one day, the opportunity came. We were out of the hills outside of Galilee. Jesus had been teaching all day. There was a great crowd. Thousands there had to be. But it was the end of the day. It was getting late. The people were hungry and restless. It was about to get ugly. Send them away, we told Jesus. We can't feed all these people. As usual, Jesus had a different idea. I still can't explain how it happened, but suddenly there was food everywhere. Piles of food. Baskets full of bread. He had us distributed among the crowd. We gave it out. There was enough for everybody. There was more than enough. It was a miracle. We were like heroes handing out that bread. And Jesus, he was like Moses bringing manna in the wilderness. Only this was better. We had fish. That's when it began, this stirring in the crowd. You could hear it across the hillsides. They began calling his name, chanting his name. They were ready to make him king right then, right there. They would have followed him anywhere. They would have marched all the way to Jerusalem if he had asked them to. But he didn't. He didn't. When he saw what was happening, he shut it down. He told the people to scatter and go home. He made us pack up our things, get in the boat. He shoved us to the other side of the lake, and then he disappeared into the hills. What was he doing? This was his moment. It was time to act. It was time to seize the momentum and to make our move. It was like he didn't want it. It bothered me. The next day we regrouped on the other side of the lake. Jesus caught up with us, and soon the crowd was gathering again, and Jesus was teaching again. But he was saying strange things now. Speaking about spiritual bread. About giving his life for the world. What was he doing? Just yesterday, they were ready to follow him anywhere. And now they're confused and distracted. No one's interested in spiritual bread. Our nation doesn't need another martyr. We need real bread. We need a leader who's not afraid to win. People began turning away. I could see it happening. Just shaking their heads and turning and walking for home. By the end of the day, it was obvious. He turned to us. He said, what about you? Will you leave too? There was a pause. Then Peter spoke up. He was always the first to speak up. Lord, he said, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We believe and know that you are the Holy One of God. The others nodded in agreement around the circle. But not me. didn't. I couldn't. I just wasn't convinced anymore. Jesus knew, I think. He always knew what was in a person's heart. Something turned in me that day. What felt like belief now felt like doubt. Things that intrigued me suddenly began to bother me. My kingdom is not of this world, he liked to say. Well, it all sounds very lofty, but this world is the only world that matters right now, Jesus. We'll worry about other worlds another time. We need a kingdom now. We want power now. At least I do. I could have asked him about these things, I guess. Asked him to explain what he meant.